You're listening to Montreal Now on CJAD 800.
That is James MENNIE of the Montreal Gazette. Oh, James.
Oh, David.
What's going on with the OQLF now?
Oh, you know, same story, different day. They put out their annual survey of it's a decent sample. It's nearly 8,000 respondents about the language of work, how French is being used in the workplace. I have to tell you, apparently, you have to be careful how they phrase this. The latest finding for 2023, just 54% of workers on the island of Montreal worked in French at least 90% of the time. Okay. So it's that hideous 10%, which I think you can't get rid of, though, because it's Montreal. And I'm sorry, it is essentially is increasingly becoming Quebec's, how can I put it, peephole on the rest of the world. And it's interesting to note, looking at the same criteria, Laval next door, it only went up to 70%. And even more surprisingly, in the rest of the 450, the North Shore, South Shore, is at 74%. That's once again 90% of the time working in French, which you would think will be sufficient to get the usual suspects over at the CAC and their branch plant, Quebecor, hopping up and down. Maybe not today because it's spring break, but down the road, once they've been able to sort of spin these figures the way they want, they will turn around and say it's another example of why Bill 96 should be toughened up, and perhaps we should have a Bill 96 on steroids. The other thing I found interesting, though, is essentially the proportion of Anglophones. It's kind of funny. Actually went up in terms of the number of Anglophones who are working in French, working exclusively or generally in French. It went from 8.2% in 2010 to 13.7% in 2023. And of course, even though it is a distance of 13 years there, David, Monsieur Robert, Jean-François Robert, the French language minister, is crediting Bill 96 with that increase because that's just how things are. It's the other thing that I think is going to freak people out, though, is something that I think anybody with a pair of eyes in their head and ears on either side of their head would determine. Younger Quebecers are less likely to end up speaking French in their workplace, probably because younger Quebecers are, first of all, more fluent in English. And the real concern now is, are our young people, age 18 to 34, being sort of like zombified by the Anglo menace, the Anglo virus, which is spreading around the world. Yes. So all in all, it's the usual stuff from the usual suspects. It'll be interesting to see what Francois Legault is going to say about this, maybe later this week or next week. But in the end, because before I just came on, I was talking to Dean about this, our producer, and I get the impression, and I'm not one of those guys that I'm sure I speak for all Quebecers when I say no, but I get the impression a lot of Francophone Quebecers are just, you know what, okay, assez, okay? We have other things to deal with than the 3.2% or whatever, or the percentage points that are going up or down with your survey conducted in all the various regions, and trying to, as our premier would like to say, trying to compare apples with oranges, trying to compare Quebec outside of Montreal with Montreal, which is simply a ridiculous comparison to make. They are completely not alike. They are two different planets. Anybody who lives here and has stepped outside, who has crossed the bridge, knows that. But it'll be once again the usual chorus, the usual rendering of garments, and then all of a sudden things will quiet down as we find something else to yell about.
I'm one of those Francophones, by the way, and I think a lot of Francophones outside Montreal now are just rolling their eyes and saying, take care of what's really important. Because I'm telling you, with these numbers, I'm not assimilated, and I'm not even close to being assimilated.
Listen, my wife says, plus francophone que ça, tu meurs, okay? And she still, after more than 35 years, she still corrects my French because, David, some of us are not born with the innate knowledge to determine the gender of an inanimate object, okay? But all that said, All that said, she too. I mean, what she's saying about this, I was talking to her about this today, and I can't even repeat in English or French what she had to say about it.
Well, but can I just do a little aside here? When you said, the stat, so 54% speak French 90% of the time. It reminded me of that scene in Anchorman, where Paul Rudd chooses his cologne. And he says 60% of the time it works all the time.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean they're having so much fun
ridiculous.
Here, and the problem is, you really have to deep dive these documents, which a lot of us don't have the time to do anymore. But the fact is, it's like, stop now. Just please stop. The idea, I know certain politicians are seizing on this the way a drowning man seizes onto a piece of flotsam because it's all they've got going for them. But the fact of the matter is there is so much, as we well know, as we've pointed out, as indeed you've been pointing out all week on CJAD.
We have a few other problems, more pressing problems.
A few other problems. You nearly had me jumping off a bridge yesterday, David.
I know, but
out loud.
We have to call it like we see them, don't we?
I know.
They're all factual. I mean,
I know. Hey, listen, I know. I understand. I've been there.
Moving on, and you're no bucket of sunshine either. You're asking me to talk about a new Canadian political statistical low.
Yeah, it's a new low. It's contained in the latest survey that was conducted by Angus Reid. And it's funny, and I mentioned this especially for you because you're going to blame me, but I'm going to blame you because yesterday you were talking about, and quite rightly, about how nobody wants to step up for public service anymore, and how it's a real mess, and people get abused, and they figure I didn't sign up for this. What's amazing, okay, is that in the latest survey, Angus Reid asked their panel, who would you prefer? To be who would be the best Prime Minister of Canada? 31% of respondents said Pierre Poilievre. Okay, 17% of respondents. I beg your pardon. Yeah. Is it 17? Yeah, 17% of respondents said Justin Trudeau. But the runner-up, the very close second, 3 points down from Pierre Poilievre at 28% is none of them. We don't want any of the potential candidates as Prime Minister of Canada. And I got to tell you, I mean, tempus fugit there, David. It's 2024. We are going to, like it or not, we're going to have an election by 2025. And this does not bode well at all because really, we're not exactly talking about charisma or how can I put it, a sunny disposition. And I really wonder. Something's going to have to break. I mean, I'm saying for sure Trudeau's got to go. But I also think that maybe in the Conservative camp, when they see numbers start to change, especially because they have hitched their wagon to Justin Trudeau. If he's suddenly out of the picture, I'm not sure those numbers are going to hold fast. And at which point, I'm not really sure whether Pierre Poilievre will be perceived as the best person to lead that party into an election in 2025. And we all know the Tories have a very short way with people who don't live up to their political expectations. But I'm getting ahead of myself. But all that said, in the here and now, when the preferred choice of the majority of Canadians at 31% is leading none of the above by just 3 percentage points, we got a problem, my friend.
Oh my God, I don't remember that happening before. Have you ever seen this?
No, but this is something, I got to tell you, and somewhere there's a book. Maybe one day I'll sit down and write it. In 2015, there was a fundamental shift in Canadian politics, and I'm talking with the 2015 election, okay, where we saw, and everyone's talking about this miracle, and Trudeau came from third place, and it's amazing, this and that. I covered that election every single day. I was writing columns on it every single day, David. And at the end, it wasn't just a matter that Justin Trudeau didn't win the election. Stephen Harper lost it, okay? It was also that it was one of the most clear indications of how finally, it wasn't a matter of issues, Canadians simply voted with their gut. It was a visceral election. It was a visceral decision. And we're seeing, to a certain extent, no small amount of buyer's remorse in the subsequent two elections that Trudeau has called. But now we're seeing it as well. When they've gone back to the store and they know they're going to have to buy something, and they don't see anything there. They don't see anything there that they want to have. And that, I think, bodes very well for our future, for the future of this country, and certainly even for the future of us here in Quebec, because the future, like it or not, the future of Canada is a function of how well or not well we do here in Quebec. And honestly, these numbers just scare the hell out of me.
Well, on that uplifting note,
well, I tell you,
I will say, Adame, my friend.
I've been doing this longer than you have, so cut me some slack.
I'm cutting you all the slack. Remember, 60% of the time, it works all the time.
All the time.
Talk to you tomorrow.